It's 1:50 in the morning. Um, it's just been on my mind because it just happened tonight. Um, the U.S. is involving itself in another war with Iran, and that's if you ask people at this time, that was expected, and it's I wanted to talk about the nihilism in America and and the people around you. At this point, if you talk to someone that is aware of the world and is willing to talk about it, um, there's a couple reactions, and there's either um, kind of like a drive for change, right? Who may not know exactly what to do, but they are being radicalized in both a good and bad way, right? But they want change. And there's the other, which is someone who holds deep nihilism and deep sadness and inability to accept that things are going to change, probably for the worse, in order to get to the better. Seeing that nihilism get out and fester isn't gonna help make the world a better place, right? And I question it. It's just how are we gonna say that we aren't unable to affect change in the world, right? MLK, he was a Christian man who felt it was possible to be in his community and organize it into something that can grow, right? You don't just plan to become a national figure to affect politics, you know? You don't just wake up one day and decide that I'm gonna do that and I'm gonna be a national figure, right? You build it, you interact with people, and you care for your community, and you care for the joys of humanity, and even something more divine like MLK felt. You wake up and you realize that what's immediately in front of me affects what's out there, and by affecting here, I can grow towards something larger and affect out there, and maybe you do become a voice that leads a nation, right? But you start small. You start that if you could do something, even how insignificant, right? Even just talking to family members who may not agree with you and getting them out to do something extra, by adding by being a community member, there's a deep sense of nihilism out, and hope is something that these cringe liberal it's these cringe stories, right? I say liberal from kind of a left perspective, right? These cringe stories of hope and change, right? Like Star Wars. the establishment co-ops those things, and they turn into hope for by voting, but the message that they display, right, and resistance is clear to me, right? True resistance, truly uniting with those you don't agree with, and truly looking at who stands against bloodshed and violence and war. That's what all the black civil rights leaders had come to the conclusion of, right? They were talking about Palestine before anyone, not exactly Martin Luther King, but that's what it transitioned to quickly, right? And we see how caught up it was, If MLK had lived another 20 years, 10 years, he most likely would have been a pro-Palestine, like his children are now. It takes people who can stand in front of this path and lead it, but recognize that they're just a human who is part of a larger whole that doesn't need to be alone, right? We're always taught to be and feel alone, right? That's what our society is built to do, is to isolate, and that you can't do anything, right? But it's wrong. It's so much more realistic than people think. We have to fight for peace in the most radical ways we can. Because why let this science project called humanity, or this experiment, fail? Because a small group of men and women and a small class of people decided that it doesn't need to continue going, that they're going to choose darkness and violence. Why let them win by being sad and convincing yourself that nothing can change? Why be like that? It's sad to see a society fall apart and lose its national identity, but in many ways we're more united than ever. Because if you pay attention, you know how depraved and violent we're being towards the world. I hope for peace, but I don't think it's in the cards anytime soon. But it's simply a stepping stone to advancement for humanity into a more peaceful era. Because we'll realize how terrible all of this is. I am going to go to bed because I'm so tired and it's 2 a.m. now.